I heard about this effort for critical resistance, and the idea was to bring together a gathering of people, people who had been in prison, policymakers, family members of prisoners, lawyers, academics, students and youth, a real broad range of people, to examine this phenomenon called the prison industrial complex.
This gathering has been a long time coming. This may very well be the first time that so many of us have gathered together to figure out how to organize a national, sustained anti-prison campaign.
Locking up more and more people. That's not what real security is. Real security is knowing that you will have shelter, that you will have food, that you will have beauty in your life, that you have a future, that your family has a future. That's what security is.
America's prisons are becoming America's concentration camps. And there is no doubt that when you look at America's prisons and you look at the fact that there are 1.5 million people in America's prisons and 65 to 70% are people of color and young people of color, and when you look at the other side and you see this bell curve and there are 1.5 million people in higher education but 80% are white, there's something really wrong.
To shut down a facility and get that money reallocated, it requires not just like suing, not even just legislation to close it down, but really an intense amount of organizing.
We're in the process right now of changing the ideology of who's an expert. Because I feel like if you've been incarcerated and you've been locked up, you an expert on some levels, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's about time. It's about time.
You know, I think fundamentally, if you want to build a movement, you have to bring people together. And I think that's one of the most significant things that critical resistance has been able to do, is to bring people together who are specifically interested in some way in building a movement to end the prison industrial complex and building a real grassroots movement.
So I think some of the most important part of the work that was accomplished with critical resistance was that they took an obscure term and introduced that into public language and public speak. So the concept of the prison industrial complex is something that people probably all around the country, if not all around the world, will use freely right now. 10 years ago, it was only used by academics.
Since then, I feel like '98 was a shift at the Center for Women's Development in terms of like, we are going to go back into the jails, we're going to go back into the juvenile halls, we're going to hit the streets, we're going to tell people about their rights, like we are going to organize and advocate also for young women.
Critical resistance is not just an organization in my mind, it actually is part of, and maybe the leadership of, a movement to abolish prisons altogether in the United States. We know that's not going to happen in the next 5 years. But the fact that there are a lot of people that believe in that and that are working in various ways against the prison system as it exists is critically important because of who's getting locked up, how many people are getting locked up in this country, and of course if we don't oppose it, it's just going to continue to mushroom and grow.
Well, I am definitely having conversations with the people I work with in Insight and locally about what we can contribute to CR10. I do see this as another huge opportunity for us to really mark what progress we've made over the past 10 years, and to really figure out where we need to move from here in the next 10 years at least.
We're here 10 years later because people feel a need for critical resistance, and that need is reflected in their willingness to be a volunteer member of critical resistance and do the organizing and do the grassroots fundraising and come to the events and write the letters and do all of those things. So I think that's really why we're here 10 years later, that we wouldn't be here but for people really feeling a need for critical resistance.
I'm seeing the fruits of the work that wasn't even at the first conference, and the fruits of the work that may not have been at the second conference, and the fruits of the work that may not have even been at the third conference. So I'm seeing the fruits of the work with the people who walk through the door and in the language that they use and in what they embrace.
I also think that we'll be able to come together and share some of the concrete results that we've had from the work we've done together. I know a lot of things have been happening in different organizations and in different collaborations, regionally and nationally. And if we can get together and share what those have been, that's going to be another marking point in a way that we can bring together the power of the work that we've been doing in smaller organizational and collective ways to really spur on the movement for the next 10 years.
People who are older, who have been prison activists perhaps for many years, will be learning from and also helping teach some lessons to younger activists that are coming up and are determined to stop the prison industrial complex.
Youth are, like women, the fastest growing rate of incarceration, and they're targeting young people at a younger and younger age. They need to, one, understand the effects of the prison industrial complex and how they're being targeted, and have an active voice and an active role in this movement, because many other movements have shut them out. And there's they can't vote, and there's policies coming down that are directly affecting them, and so they need to play an active role.
It's a process to build a movement that doesn't happen overnight. And so 10 years down the line, we have a lot of different pieces in place. And I think each one of these gatherings actually helps us build another piece in this movement that will eventually succeed.
The challenge is to grow. The challenge is to be organized about the ways that we consolidate and unite so that we have some unitary campaigns that we can actually measure progress on, in addition to the constant requirement that we respond to crises, because there are so many crises in all of our locations all the time that have to do with prison.
I actually do embrace the idea that we should build worlds without prisons. And it's not that far-fetched. And even for the people that it is far-fetched to at this point, we need that outer edge to have people at least walking in the right direction.
I do think Critical Resistance 10 gives people a unique opportunity to be part of history. I think just like, maybe it's a little dramatic, but I actually don't think it is. Just like there were, 12 people meeting in this print shop in London, and 50 years later, slavery was abolished. I think that, this is an opportunity to be part of something that, is historic, is unique, and I hope people will, take advantage of that tremendous opportunity.